New No Man's Sky just dropped, and I've got impressions, information, patch notes, and more. And it's all available today. I've got the worm droppings right here for you in the LZ. Well, hello, travelers. Long time no see. Good to have you back here in the LZ. And today, Expedition 4, the Emergence update, just dropped. Gonna throw the patch notes on the screen for you for your viewing pleasure. We'll talk through some of the highlights and, of course, get my initial impressions. But, of course, just in the nick of time for Halloween version 3.70. Launched today on all platforms, with exception of the Nintendo Switch version. Sean, Murray, hello games. I know you can do it. But Emergence drops just shortly after the drop of the No Man's Sky Frontiers update. Check the cards above, I did a review on that. And this update comes in the way of an Expeditions update. So let me first tell you what it isn't. Emergence is not particularly a large content drop, so to speak. Sean himself even says that it's a tinier update, but it does come with a little bit of substance. In my recent video where I talked about ranking all of the No Man's Sky updates so far, I called Expeditions one of the more engaging updates that No Man's Sky has gotten in the last years. So not a whole lot of complaining from this guy when it comes to the level of content or depth here. I do enjoy the type of experience that the Expeditions brings. And of course, this one has an air of mystery around it. So let's talk about the marquee aspect of this new Emergence Expedition. Undoubtedly, the more significant aspect of the update comes in the way of Titan worms, colossal sandworms that plow through the desert sands, blacking out the sun as they arc overhead and defiling the very terrain with their cursed dust. So funny enough, I remember prior to this update complaining that I almost never would see sandworms. That was one of the big giant updates that I think we got last year. The addition of sandworms that kind of are huge and jump across the planet. Sort of out of nowhere, and it was very rare for me to ever experience these. I think I've ever seen one on 2 or 3 occasions, and a majority of those were just sort of, I hear it and I feel the screen rattling, but I don't actually see it because there's a mountain in the way or something like that. When I started this expedition, there are worms everywhere. Literally everything I do leads to a sandworm jumping across the sky. At some point in my playthrough so far, I have seen 3 to 4 sandworms at one time. So undoubtedly, there's something that multiple players are doing on this planet, whether it's exiting ships or starting a mission or doing something that triggers a worm to just sort of out of nowhere fly across the sky. I've been hit and beaten and thrown into the stratosphere by these things. I'm going to say this, and this might not be that popular, but I kind of dig that. No pun intended. I think this is great. I think that the sandworms should definitely be more prevalent to a certain type of planet and be super active and kind of annoy the crap out of me. Like every other expedition, these particular missions take place primarily on a singular starting planet where everybody starts. And if you're new to expeditions, these are really cool sort of carrot on the stick type missions that really takes the entire single player No Man's Sky experience and sort of condenses it into just a really shorter time frame of gameplay, right? So in the regular No Man's Sky experience, it takes you a ton of time to gather resources and do upgrades and things like that. Actually completing missions in the expeditions gives you a ton of rewards, a ton of upgrades, and accelerates the experience a ton. And the primary draw is doing it with a lot of other players, which I think is 32 players on next-gen consoles and PC, and I believe it's 16, if I remember correctly, on previous gen. They come with all kinds of cool rewards in the Nexus. And speaking of rewards, Emergence adds several new items to the offering for No Man's Sky that are very specific to the Emergence update, primarily aiming towards sort of a worm lore. I'm still experimenting and discovering what these do and what these are for. Some of these items require that you have gained other items to accomplish. But right away, I know my experience in this Emergence was great already, because you spawn in and I began heading towards my ship, and immediately I met an encounter for some of these sandworms that come out of nowhere. As I was just sort of like, hey, cool, that's a new object, that's shiny, and suddenly I'm fighting like 6 worms that are biting and spitting at me. I thought that was really cool too. Definitely a new addition to No Man's Sky, which I think is really cool. And if No Man's Sky and Hello Game wants to take more advice from me on, I don't know how much advice they've ever taken from me, obviously, but I would love to see more things like that are planet specific, that are kind of just beyond worms. And they kind of feel like mini bosses in a way, which I thought was really cool. I would hope they would take that concept and push harder on that in a more variation / planet specific type of thing. Emergence also added some pretty impressive particle effects to things like explosions. When sandworms dive out of the planet, they're usually followed up by just huge plumes of dust and particles flying everywhere, tiger claws flying across the sky when they impact the planet again, which is really cool. I mentioned rewards already, things like helmets and stuff like that. One of them looks like a sandworm mouth that looks pretty kind of gross, obviously. And then, of course, rideable sandworms are another gigantic piece of this. I have yet to find one to do this to yet, but I'm working on it. And if it's one thing that comes along with Halloween updates, it's definitely the the mature audience elbow jab into my rib cage when Hello Games names something a flesh launcher. I am such a child. This is undoubtedly one of the other little nuggets that are standing between us and the next big content update. This particular expedition is designed, from what I'm being tagged on Twitter. Folks are sharing information that the website is showing that it's supposed to go for 5 weeks, which is going to put us at the later half of, the week of the 22nd, which is kind of tough because that's just days after Battlefield 2042 launches. So obviously, just like this last expedition that just ended, that was part of the Frontiers update, expect what I'm being told, November 22nd for this to end, which will likely lead into the next content drop for No Man's Sky and another significant content update. Of course, let me know in the comments, what do you think about the Emergence Expeditions update? And from what you've played of it so far, what are you getting out of it, and what are you seeing is coming next for No Man's Sky after this update? And naturally, pop a like on the video. Happy to have you here, and see you in the next one.